What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Off the Top Rope, Off the Mic Sports Network. Getting through a lot of this wrestling that happened over the course of Saturday. We had three shows on Saturday, and we got Evolution on Sunday. But let's talk about Saturday night's main event. Already talked about it on the channel. You can go watch it. I went in deep on Seth Rollins and what could potentially be a catastrophic injury. There's been video that's been going all over the place where he was visibly upset. And you could see on the initial swanton, he landed weird, and then he planted on the lion salt. It was bad. It's potentially catastrophic. We don't know if Roman was going to return in that spot. I doubt it, considering. I mean, who knows? Maybe they called an audible and Roman was backstage. We may know more as the weekend progresses, and what the direction is going to be going towards SummerSlam, because literally SummerSlam's in 3 weeks, so they got to figure out what the hell they're doing. In terms of this show, like, nothing earth-shaking really happened. Like, this was a standard Saturday night's main event. Obviously, Goldberg in the main event went longer than it was probably anticipated to go. That being said, his retirement speech got cut off abruptly. It almost felt like kind of like an FU to Goldberg. And listen, like, I've been hard on him. He's 58 years old. We'll get to what, in the grand scheme of things, like, if they didn't make it as long as they did, maybe it would have landed better, but it was fine. It wasn't anything fucking god awful. Goldberg didn't hurt anybody, so that's a plus. But we'll talk about that as we move along here. Like, obviously the Seth injury is going to get a lot of the attention. The opening match with Randy Orton and Drew McIntyre, a lot of interference, obviously involving Jelly Roll and Logan Paul, which led directly to the finish. Randy Orton gets a win. There was stuff on the outside involving Jelly Roll and Logan Paul, where Jelly Roll just pushed Logan Paul to the ground. It led to Drew being distracted. Drew takes an RKO. Randy then gets attacked by Logan after the match. Jelly Roll gets into it with Logan again. Drew hits a Claymore on Jelly Roll, and here we are. We're getting the tag match: Jelly Roll and Randy Orton versus Logan Paul and Drew McIntyre. And I've got to say this, and I said this on Friday after SmackDown. They've done a really good job in 2 nights back to back of selling me on this match. It doesn't mean anything in the grand scheme of things. It's really a celebrity match. It's going to be about, obviously, Randy and Randy and Drew are the vets. Logan's been through it. Whether you love him or you hate him, he's good at getting heat. He's an adequate enough wrestler. And this is going to be about highlighting a celebrity in Jelly Roll who is very famous. So I get it. And this isn't the first time that WWE has ever done this. I think, and I give credit to a guy who I've referenced a lot here on the channel recently, because listen, even though you don't like his opinions, he is very honest about what he thinks. I think a lot of us got fucked up in the brain because of Travis Scott and everything that he did in the build-up to WrestleMania, and then obviously his interference in the match at WrestleMania, which really, the match wasn't good. It got worse when Travis Scott showed up. So I think our brains were kind of broken from a celebrity perspective, and we kind of forgot Johnny Knoxville had a really good match. That was a celebrity match. Obviously, Bad Bunny, I think, is like really one of the gold standards of celebrity matches. Dude, I fucking hate Floyd Mayweather. His match go watch it at WrestleMania 24 with the Big Show, was really excellent. And Floyd did a job. Like, it was great. And like you said, you could say whatever you want. Floyd Mayweather's a heinous human being, and they've done this with people that are far worse than Jelly Roll. So listen, my issue coming into this was, okay, how are they going to do this in 3 weeks with this abrupt schedule and make it work? And in 2 nights, they sold the shit out of this. Randy clearly wanting to have fun. A lot of people are going to be mad that Randy and Drew are mixed up in this. Listen, they're doing their job, man, and Drew is excellent. It's going to be interesting to see the dynamic that it plays out and see how this plays into Randy's character moving forward, because the whole thing I think they're trying to go for here is Randy's gotten soft. And hopefully that leads potentially into a character change that we're anticipating if Cody does win and stays babyface, leading to Randy and Cody down the line. So I like where they're going with this. And this is a different side of Randy. You're seeing him very Like, the dad energy and, like, being a big softy coming back from his injury, that it makes a lot of sense. So we'll see where this goes. But they did a really good job of using SmackDown and then Saturday night's main event to really elevate a celebrity match into the stratosphere. I just wish they would have done this in not as much of a condensed format, like some of the other celebrity matches that they've built at big shows. But like I said, 2 night show, completely harmless. So, and Randy and Drew did a really good job in a short match to kick off the show. In between, the next match, so they were showing people in the crowd, and so they showed Io, they showed Rhea, both got huge pops, and they showed Jade. And then as Jade's being shown in the crowd with the sitting in the audience shot, Naomi comes up from behind and attacks her. And this leads to a really good pull apart brawl. Jade getting in some good licks, Naomi getting thrown over the table, Naomi diving onto a bunch of security guards and Jade. It was great. Nick Aldis comes out, basically says, "Hey, I knew that this was going to happen. I've been working on something. I was going to tell you guys privately in the back, but since you jumped the gun, I'm going to let you know your special guest referee for the no holds barred match at Evolution is Bianca Belair." And everybody's worst nightmare that Bianca was actually going to miss Evolution. The this is a perfect decision, and it also creates some unpredictability. I thought for sure Jade was going to win. I could totally see Naomi winning this match in a certain way. That being said, I could see this sort of laying the groundwork for potentially a Bianca character change. We don't know how healthy she is, if she's ready to go, but adding her to this match really, spices it up even more. And this has been one of the better women's feuds that they've done the entire year. Obviously, Jade being Queen of the Ring and having a match at SummerSlam, and then Naomi obviously being Miss Money in the Bank. That's a very interesting dynamic there. So that was a great way. They normally have 5 matches on these things. So this was a good way to break off and get into the next match. What was very interesting, Naomi's husband was the next match. It was Jimmy Uso versus Solo Sikoa, brother versus brother. This was a fine match. Jimmy got some good offense in. Solo gets the win basically by cheating. Talatonga, the big former Hikuleo, gives a little assist on a roll up at the end of this thing with a bunch of interference. And at the end of it, the MFTs, as they're called, they're not called the Bloodline. They beat up on Jimmy for a little bit. Out comes Jacob Fatu. We're clearly setting the stage for turf war between the ex Bloodline people against Solo and his MFTs, and we'll see when Tamatonga ends up coming back as well. So, like I said, this is a good little match here on this show. Nothing special, and that's kind of the thing about these Saturday. They're basically house show matches, but the crowd was into it, and good for Jimmy, man. Jimmy getting an opportunity in a big spot. That was really cool. Obviously, Seth and LA Knight, nobody's really going to be talking about what happened in this match, but LA Knight looked good. The reports going around is that Seth was going to win. Maybe Seth wins and then Roman gets the run in. We're never going to know if Seth was planned to potentially cash in that main event, and they had to alter that. Because clearly, like I said, the bigger issue, look, good for LA Knight. It sucks that a big win for him against a big star like Seth Rollins, and they had to go to that finish because Seth couldn't do anything because he couldn't walk because his knee was screwed up. It sucks that that's going to really overshadow that LA Knight got a big win here, whether it was by injury or not. And good on Seth for being professional and just saying, "Hey, let's just go to the finish and let's just do it." They could have easily thrown up the X and just called the match off, but they were far in it. The thing is, that was different from what happened with Liv Morgan a few weeks ago. This was deep enough into the match where you could kind of buy into the fact that, hey, maybe, but it was so abrupt that you were wondering what the fuck is going on here. And it sucks because, like I said in my separate video that you can go check out here on the channel, Seth is like, no matter how you feel about Seth Rollins, and I know some people have gotten in the comments saying he's boring, he's not very entertaining, he's not a top guy, and I've been critical of this heel run. Seth is still involved in a lot of shit. He was clearly a key piece of this build to SummerSlam and for the rest of the year. They were planning something off of this WrestleMania heel turn, this alliance with Paul Heyman, this alliance with Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed, and now that has been blown up. For how long, we don't know. But if this is anything like beyond a couple of weeks, he's going to miss SummerSlam. That clearly throws that up into the air. And Whether they take the briefcase off him or not, that's going to be really determined by how long he's out. In a weird way, if they wanted to, they don't have to take the briefcase off of him if he's not going to be out for a year. Because remember, he's got until June of next year to cash this thing in. So he could come back in out of nowhere and still have this. We've never had that happen. When injuries have happened or suspensions have happened, I think it was Mr. Kennedy who lost the briefcase, and then they dropped it off of Otis during COVID because that was just a weird decision. But it's not unprecedented to have the briefcase be transferred after somebody was injured, whatever, or whatever decision they wanted to make. So they could put it on the line. They could do whatever they want. They could have another Money in the Bank match for all we care. But that's really the dynamic of this that sucks. And a lot of people are going to say, well, they could have given it to LA Knight. Guys, look, they clearly had some big plans for Seth, and it stinks that it had to come to this. Again, we still don't know the nature of it, but every indication from sources within the media say that this is serious. This is legit. This is not a work. Clearly, Seth is hurt, and if you've watched any of the videos from ringside or from fan footage, Seth was clearly upset. He knows something's off. And like I said, I'm hoping it's just something short term. The bigger question is now if you're Seth, do you have to consider reworking your style to the point of, okay, do I have to stop doing a lot of these high flying maneuvers when I'm working as a heel, even though it's a lot of what's gotten me to the dance? You're getting up there in your age. You already have some back issues. I think it might be time to have a conversation with Seth Rollins about potentially, modifying some aspects of his style. And he could still be successful. But again, he's had some issues pop up in the last couple of years, specifically during that World Heavyweight title run back in 2024. He almost didn't make it to WrestleMania. Like I said, this is the first really significant concern that we've seen, like, that played out in real plain time since that injury 10 years ago. And I've talked about that. So hoping Seth's okay. Really just put a damper on, really, obviously with the Adam Cole injury that became public at All In, it's been and then obviously Liv Morgan a few weeks ago, it's been a really rough time for injuries in professional wrestling, and Seth's a big part of that, whether you like him or not. Like I said, I think he's one of the best in the business. I mean, he's not for everybody. I get it, but he's a big piece of WWE television. And this really hurts their build to one of their biggest shows of the year in SummerSlam in a few weeks. So, and then, we'll never know how much time was actually planned for Goldberg and Gunther, but they clearly went on longer than they had to make up time because and also another thing about the show, way too many commercials and hard outs that were just abruptly, they after the match where Gunther won, they abruptly went to break, and then they literally came back for 30 seconds of Goldberg's speech, and then they took it off the air. So these Saturday night main events thing are starting to become and also there was a huge Naked Gun logo right in the middle of the ring that looked ridiculous. Like this TKO stuff, I understand that they're making money, but it's getting a little bit absurd. Like, I understand that at the end of the day, this is a business and you're about making money, but some of these events have just gotten to the point of, dude, we've got to separate the wrestling business, and we've got to separate the TKO side of this thing where they're just trying to get every dollar and cent that they want. Like, it's like the fan experience, it's becoming hard to get into buildings. It hasn't become an issue because WWE is still hot and still generating great crowds and filling up arenas, but yeah, those were a couple things that really popped up to me. But in terms of the main event, I don't think anything from this with Goldberg and Gunther was inherently an atrocity. I do think that they did a really good job in a long form match of protecting Goldberg from himself. Because the biggest concern that I had was the longer that this thing went on, was Goldberg going to be able to have enough of a gas tank where he was going to put Gunther in harm's way. And I think they did a really good job of, kind of protecting Goldberg. I mean, him no-selling Gunther's chops was really well done. The spear through the barricade looked pretty gnarly. Also, shout out Charles Robinson. Can we talk about this for a second? Charles Robinson, Think about what this guy has done in the last 3 weeks. This guy got shoved down by John Cena about as hard as I've seen a ref get shoved down at, well, he didn't even get shoved down. He got, like, hip checked, like, it was like a hockey check, almost like a shoulder tackle. And then he takes a spear from Goldberg as a ref bump as part of this main event. Charles Robinson, Baby Nate, shout out to you, my man. Like, you have been putting in work and he's one of the great referees in this profession. And man, he's getting his money's worth the last month or so, man. Like, this has been impressive from Charles Robinson. So he takes the bump. Goldberg gets a spear and then a jackhammer. Ref comes in. It's a very good near fall. Oh, I didn't think, like, when the delay happened, I was like, okay. And then Gunther puts him to sleep in the sleeper. It was a good little hope spot. The crowd was really into it. No matter what you think of Goldberg and his limitations, the crowd was really behind him. It was a good idea to do this at home. Also, Gage, his son, who we saw for the first time in 2016 when he came back, is now in college and playing for Coach Prime at Colorado. So it was nice to see Gage get involved in the backstage thing. The old WCW security man, Ernest the Cat Miller, was there. Josh Barnett, DDP was there. The Steiner brothers were there. Listen, nostalgia was there. And, I think that was the goal really of this. Yes, was it a little bit self-serving, and did Goldberg need to have a world championship match? Probably not. But for a harmless match, like, this was fine. Like, it wasn't inherently bad. That being said, did I need to see it? No, I didn't. Like, this didn't need to happen. But, they gave a legend a sign off. The speech at the end, that was a little bit of this Saturday night main events concept is really, especially considering we're just bracketing them off in between premium live events, it's getting a little bit ridiculous. But listen, like I said, I don't think anything really was atrocious on this show. Yes, the ad breaks were bad. Yes, obviously Seth Rollins' injury sucks. The match work and the wrestling on the show was fine. Gunther, kind of helped Goldberg do a halfway decent match. The match went on way too long, and I think some of that was related to what happened in the match prior with the injury to Seth. And we'll never know if he was planning to cash in. We'll never know if Goldberg was planning to win. I don't think he was. I tried telling you guys this for weeks. There was no sense in that. He went out on his back like a good professional wrestler is supposed to do in their retirement match. But he got his due in his hometown. He got to do it in front of his son and his wife. He got to do it where he literally had his entire career arc there. It was fine. So I think the one thing that we need to talk about, at least with these Saturday night's main event things, is if you're going to lean into this being a network TV special, we've got to make these things feel like if you're going to make this like event feel like it is, because there's better, like, remember when they did these Saturday night's main event back, like 15 years ago under Vince McMahon, they felt like nothing. There was a bunch of bullshit happening on these shows. At least some of these matches actually feel like, premium live event level, but it still feels like a house show. And then obviously when you have all these ads breaking off these matches, it doesn't feel like anything really worthwhile. So that's my issue with these shows. But, like I said, for a random Saturday night, after all in Texas, I mean, yeah, getting bled into with the 6-hour show that they were doing over there in AEW. Sure. This was a fine show. I didn't hate this. Like I said, that being said, it was kind of middle of the road. And then, hey, Goldberg, good send off. Not really the greatest match in the world, but it wasn't bad. So the big concern and really the big story, and this sucks, is the health of Seth Rollins. And what's that going to look like, and how's that going to affect the rest of the WWE year? And really in the immediate future, how's it going to affect SummerSlam? Because like I said, we're 3 weeks away, guys. We're 3 weeks away, and one of your biggest stars is hurt. Potentially seriously. So that's the thing that we need to talk about. And like I said, I already did a video about that. When we get more information, you will hear it right here and hear my immediate reactions here on the channel at the Off the Mic Sports Network. Thanks, everybody who has hung with me. We're over 1,600 subscribers. We're rolling into tomorrow with Evolution. We'll have reactions to that as well. And obviously, I'll have some other separate side videos related to All in Texas. A full reaction in over 30 minutes is up on the channel as well. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye.